If you had fun learning about the generational wealth gap in my last video, then you're really gonna have fun today. And by fun, I might mean you could become totally confused, angry, and you may want to pull your hair out. Like I've said before, the distribution of wealth in America does not match the American population. And you can see this when you look at the generational distribution of wealth and now the racial distribution of wealth. Today, we're gonna talk all about the racial wealth gap. This is Money Talks. I'm Anna Beahm. Let's talk demographics for a minute. According to the US Census Bureau, there are around 329 million people in America. 76.3% of those people are white, 13.4% of those people are African American, and 18.3% are Hispanic. These numbers are important because in an equal world, the wealth distribution should follow the demographic distribution, right? Right? Anyone? Does anyone agree with me? Anyone? You? What about you? What about you? Do you agree? In my last video, I talked about the millennial wealth gap. Yeah, the millennial wealth gap is scary. But if those numbers scared you, then maybe you should take a seat before you watch the rest of this video. Like I said earlier, Black Americans make up about 13% of the population. And they hold, according to the Federal Reserve, 4.4% of the nation's wealth. That's it, 4.4%. Yikes. And that's all Black Americans, not just Black millennials. White Americans, who comprise about 74% of the population, hold around 84% of the wealth. Now, to be fair, yes, white wealth has decreased. Well, not really decreased. White people hold a smaller share of the wealth than they did in 1989 when the Federal Reserve began tracking this. But what's important to know is that our nation has become more diverse since then, meaning that minority people make up a larger portion of our country and white people make up a smaller portion. And you may think this wealth gap isn't a big deal, but it is. What's an even bigger deal is that the distribution of wealth for Black Americans hasn't really grown a whole lot since 1989. In 1989, Black Americans held 3.8% of the nation's wealth, which means that Black wealth has grown 0.6% in 31 years. Yikes. And the story about Hispanic wealth is even sadder. In 1989, Hispanic Americans held 2.1% of the nation's wealth. Now they hold 3.2% of the nation's wealth. And as a reminder, they make up a little more than 18% of the population. Now, before you start your racist explanations for why minorities are less wealthy than white people, there are real, documented, researched, and studied reasons why minorities are less wealthy than white Americans. You've got slavery, Jim Crow, and the racial terror that denied people of color access to political power for years and years. Then you have decades of housing discrimination and racist hiring practices. Plus, people of color historically have had less access to some traditional banking services like home loans. Additionally, white people have essentially had a 400-year lead on Black people in building wealth. And white people literally used Black Americans to build their own wealth during slavery. And if you don't believe me, then maybe you can read one of the literal hundreds of books that have been written about these issues. But wait, we're not just gonna stop there. It gets worse. The COVID-19 pandemic is on track to further widen the wealth gap between white Americans and people of color. Compared to white people, Black and Latino people are 3 times more likely to contract coronavirus and 2 times more likely to die from it. And research has shown that both pandemics and economic recessions have caused the wealth gap to widen. Lucky for us, we have both at the same time. You may be watching this video and you're silently or maybe loudly wondering if there's any hope for you to build wealth. We'll get to that in the next video, I promise. Thanks for watching. I'm Anna Beahm.